Good Morning Liberty.
Well, what is going on, all of our liberty-loving friends? Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Post-Debate Decision Democracy 2024.
That's what we named it.
Yeah.
That's what we named today's episode.
This is Good Morning Liberty. We talk about life, liberty, pursuit of meaning, presidential debates, police brutality, daily news, climate change, economics, free will, freedom,
in liberty.
and killing kids.
Those things. Yeah, those things.
We
That's
talk about other
specifically on our
people.
list.
Talk
Other
about-
people that kill kids.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
got you.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, we are Good Morning Liberty. There was a debate last night between Trump and Kamala. Live streamed it last night, hung out with the people in the Fed Haters Club, joingml.com. I'll give you my initial thoughts, and you said you watched it as well. My initial thoughts kind of during and after the debate, and really before, was that it was going to be pretty easy for Kamala to be the winner of the debate. She just had to not make a fool of herself, not do anything too ridiculous, lose her train of thought, all that kind of stuff. And I think she pulled that off. I also think, some of you might not like the content of today's episode, which I don't care. Do you care if anyone doesn't like the content of today's episode?
I haven't cared about that since inception.
Okay, so you might not like the content because I'm going to critique Trump quite a lot today because I think he really messed up in this whole I'm going to wing it type thing. It's one thing to wing it when you're going up against a guy whose brain doesn't work anymore and is super old and has a hard time saying any complete sentence whatsoever. It's another thing to wing it against someone who's got $600 million in her war chest, a bunch of people training her for a week before the debate, and, as she is fond of saying, is a former prosecutor. And so she is capable of speaking and capable of memorizing lines, things like that. As most people have mentioned, I think the moderators were absolutely terrible. There's always this thing after debates where like, oh, why didn't they fact check in real time? They should have fact checked in real time. They did fact check in real time.
One of them.
One of the people in the debate.
Yeah.
Literally one of them. There were 4 or 5 times that they actually broke in with a fact check. Not even correct fact checks every single time, but they broke in with a fact check, and they were all against Trump. Kamala said several lies last night, a lot of lies.
The biggest of which is probably Charlottesville that
She
we've
did
talked
that
about
again.
on this show so many times.
So many times, and they didn't care. They never came in with a fact check on those things. And so, yeah, I agree. The moderators were really terrible, but I'm not going to give Trump a pass on that because you're going on ABC. He said that they were biased. He knows that they're the most biased and all that, all the different things that he called them. And he should have been prepared for that and not let that throw you off and not get real defensive and all that. And he took the bait every single time Kamala gave him some debate last night. He took the bait and
Debate.
and threw him off whatever track he was on. He just was defensive is what it came off as me. So I've got some clips pulled up.
My thoughts are similar. However, I wouldn't say that Kamala won the debate, and I don't know if that's my opinion. I will say she was extremely well prepared. She sounded like she had practiced several of those lines and was really good at telling the story. She was really good at honing in on a few things I noticed, which was moving forward, turning the page, not looking back.
Yeah.
Those types of things. I think Trump got a few good things in there when he talked about sending her a MAGA hat, that, her changing policy positions. I think he could have hammered her harder on her values changing, and that would have definitely shown how much of a liar she is, considering the moderators weren't going to fact check her like they were fact checking him. I think he stumbled sometimes, and what I mean by that is in the middle of the answer, he just kept saying millions of people are pouring across the border.
That was his go-to.
It was like like millions and millions and millions, much higher than what they're estimating, like their jobs number. It was false. And then he would it's almost like he would lose his train of thought, and so he would just default back, like tick back into millions of people crossing the border.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he could have done a much better job in the performance, and that
It'd be funny if right now
Kamala's performance, I think, was better. But I don't know that she won in the sense that it's going to sway a lot of voters.
Yeah. I think it could sway some independent voters potentially, but not that much. I don't think it was that big of a deal. The betting market, by the way, as far as who's going to win the election, is the poly market betting market. Beforehand, it was 52% to 47% Trump over Harris. And right now, it's sitting at 49% Trump, 50% Harris after the debate. So this is the most recent screenshot I could take on this. So yeah, I did take the screenshot just before the debate, and this is what we have right now. So the betting markets are saying that she won the debate and that it helped her with the right people. Could be true, might not be true.
What's weird is
I don't know.
Pennsylvania being a toss-up. I think the fracking thing hurts her, and I think people in Pennsylvania know that.
Yeah.
They understand what's happened over the last 4 years. That's another thing Trump could have been a lot better at. I think he somewhat made the point, although it wasn't totally coherent, about how she's, her and Biden have had 3.5 years, and it's only gotten worse.
Yeah.
So,
when we get to his closing statement was, he finally said the thing like, well, you've been in there for 3.5 years and you haven't done any of these things, which we talked about yesterday, I believe, or day before yesterday. That's not entirely a great point because she is the vice president who doesn't have a lot of power to do things. But I get making the point. A better way to bring that point home, she says, well, I'm the vice president, not the president. I'm not my boss. And could say, well, if you want to do all of these things, but yet you still said Joe Biden was the greatest president of our lifetimes and you still supported him up until you cooed him. Is that why you cooed him, by the way? Because you wanted him to do all these things and he won't do it because you say that these are all things you're going to do and you're vice president right now and your president's not doing them. So why aren't you have you had that conversation with Biden that you want him to do all of these things? Why won't he do it? What was that conversation like?
Right.
Those
are a lot of things he could have hammered home.
You could do things like that.
And coherently put them together.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I wanted to play, by the way, the clips we're playing during this are clips from last night's live stream. So every once in a while, you're going to see me on screen and you might hear me commenting on it. I tried to keep all my comments to a minimum. But I did love this. I'm going to give a little white pill here. I gave some advice beforehand to Trump. Clearly, he was on the stream and and he took the advice. So I do appreciate that. Let's watch this.
And what I think is Trump should be insanely disciplined. Do not interrupt her whatsoever. And the first time she starts talking while he's talking, he should say, Madam Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. Try to get that out of the way right there at the beginning. That way she can't use it later on.
She was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute. I'm talking now.
Oh, he did
If you don't mind, please.
He did it.
Does that sound familiar?
Woo! Yes.
She went out.
Yes.
She went out in Minnesota.
I was very excited.
Yeah.
That time.
Your prediction came true.
It came true.
Yeah.
What I think is Trump should be.
Oh,
he didn't say Madam Vice President, though.
He didn't say that, no. Here's a little critique. What I worry about with Trump, my critique with Trump, is that he's good at going after people, putting them down, making fun of them, and hammering these points, but sometimes it's like he doesn't know why and can't step out of that box. For instance, when you bring up the border security bill, that the reports are he called up people in Congress and said, don't push this bill through, and that was brought up. There's a very simple answer on this. I'll show you.
He should have. Well, do you have a precursor to this?
No, not to this. No.
He should have absolutely said, "Oh, I definitely did that, and here's why."
Because it was a terrible bill.
Because it was a terrible bill.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's so easy. It was a terrible bill. It codified illegal immigration into law.
In fact, he should have been like, "Hell yeah, I freaking called everybody I possibly could think of to get that disastrous bill stopped.
And then say, you know what the Democrats killed was H.R. 2, which was a much stronger immigration bill that they didn't want to push through because they want illegal immigration. The one that they tried to get through that one Republican co-signed on or co-authored was a terrible bill. It codified almost 2 million illegal immigrants being legal to allow into the country every year. And that's not what we do. And by the way, also, Madam Vice President, I did it with no legislation. I did it all with executive orders. You see those record low numbers of immigration into our country? That's no legislation. That was all executive orders over the border because I'm the president and I've got the authority to do so. There's your answer.
He kind of mentioned that a little bit, but he talked about a bill. You know, he's like, Biden could sign a bill. Like,
yeah, he kept saying bill.
No, it's not a bill. It's an executive order. That's what I'm saying. He wasn't like fully coherent in making his argument like solid.
Mm-hmm.
He could have very easily, and I remember listening to his answer and being like, that's not it. That's not a good answer.
You're probably going to hear me saying that in this clip right here.
The United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so, that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border?
Okay.
So, and the way that ABC asked him the question.
Oh, yeah.
Why did you kill that bill? That would have put thousands of extra border agents on. No. The way they frame the questions and his, which do you have his answer?
He really didn't give any answer about that.
I know.
Yeah, he just went on to something else.
I know. So it was absolutely awful.
Yeah,
awful. He could have driven that point home. That alone could have won him the debate.
Mm-hmm. He should just some coherent next level thought process response about something could have won him the debate. But it was all like, oh no, she's a liar, she's terrible. Millions and millions of immigrants coming across the border. Hide your dogs, hide your pets, hide your ducks, and that was about it. But that was not as bad as his answer on healthcare.
Oh yeah,
when it came to the Obamacare question. And we're doing this. I was gonna say with love, but we're doing this with hatred for Kamala Harris. Just in case it's your first time listening right now. It was disappointing to hear what could have been such good answers, just nothing, okay? And they had them dead to rights on the Obamacare thing,
opportunity after missed opportunity after missed opportunity.
Here's that. And I have yet to find out how to not restart the video when I try to switch to a new slide, but whatever, let's go.
You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Correct. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it, and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I did the right thing. But it's still
That's not the
never
right thing.
going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if
That's not
we
good.
come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts
just get
and
rid of it.
options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President.
And he also lies there, by the way, because remember his first 2 years of his presidency, he had the majority House, majority Senate, and the presidency.
And
They campaigned on repeal and replace. They campaigned on just repealing it, and then it was repeal and replace, and then they had 2 years to do it, and it didn't come up a single time.
Mm-hmm.
And then it started coming up again after they lost the Senate, the House. After they lost the House for his next 2 years, it got brought up several times, and of course, it was killed every single time by the left. So it was never really part of the plan. It's very difficult to take back entitlements once they're given.
That's true.
It's political suicide.
And
And so part of his answer is honest, which is, hey, it's terrible, but we couldn't figure out a way to politically
it's like, what are you going to do if
solve
I
the
get
problem.
rid of it? I'm going to lose. So,
Right.
like, just say that.
Yep.
You know, the people will get really mad if I get rid of it. But
and there's a good line there from Jake Trump. I'd use socialism if it worked.
yeah,
That's one of the problems with Trump is that he's not principally based.
no.
You know, he's not making these decisions based on principle. He's making them based on what is going to get him the most vote. He's a politician.
Mm-hmm.
Always has been. How can he get the deal done that benefits him?
I long for the day where we have a guy who says, what do you want my plan? The free market is going to do it. We're going to get the government out of healthcare as much as humanly possible, as fast as we possibly can. It's the government that makes this so expensive. It's Medicare and Medicaid that are ruining healthcare. I don't have to give you a plan. There's millions of people out there in the economy that are working together on this plan, and they're going to do it if we let them do it. You know, when are we going to get someone with an answer like that? You don't say, here's and my God, if you say that you should have a plan, they had them on, you know, it's been 9 years since you started saying that you're going to get rid of it. Do you have a plan to get rid of it? It's been 9 years.
I'm thinking about plans.
I've got concepts of a plan, but you know, you guys didn't tell me to bring my plans with me.
Yeah. Didn't bring my plan book.
That was bad. Real bad.
You have long...
see, it does that every time. How do I make that stop? He's got the biggest rallies. Here's another time that he got baited into something and it took away from any substance at all, where she attacked his rallies for being boring. And he took the bait because he can't. It's like talking about his hands or something like that. Like he can't handle that. Here's the deal. I hate to tell you guys this, but Kamala Harris has had a lot of really big rallies with a whole bunch of people at them. Sometimes a lot more people than go to the Trump rallies. That's just the case. Now he said, well, they got to bus people in, which I believe they did in New Hampshire, or they got to pay people to be there, which is probably true because that does happen quite often. I don't think it's always the case. Or he could have said, only reason she got those big rallies because she has big music stars come and perform at the rallies. They're not there to see her. They're there to see whatever star's performing that night. And then they start leaving after that person gets done. You see how easy that was to say? If you just prepared for like a day beforehand for potential things that were going to get brought up, you could be ready for something like that.
And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
First, let me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back.
This would have been another good time to bring up the assassination attempt.
Yeah.
You know?
He brought it up
And
one time last night.
Yeah, but he could have driven that point home again. He could have said, due to this person running against me, likely, and their rhetoric against me, I was shot at one of my rallies.
Yeah.
You know, don't forget that.
He did say that last night.
He did, but I'm saying that was another opportunity to drive that point. Drive that point home. Continue to drive point the home that I'm the president. I'm the guy running for president that survived an assassination attempt. Why do they want to try to take me out at my rallies?
Who's trying to take me out?
Exactly. You know, why you should be afraid because people are trying to take me out. What are they so scared of? Are they scared that I'm going to fire them all because they're not doing their jobs? There are so many ways he could have driven this home so well.
I know.
It could have been the best debate performance ever. Could have been incredible.
Well, he said it was.
And it just wasn't. I kept watching and I'm like, God, she's doing much better.
She is. She
doing
did
much better.
This one's called Hide Your Dogs, Hide Your Cats, Hide the Ducks. Right here. We all know this. This one really is to highlight how the moderators got involved in the debate because they come in with a fact check. And I don't know if you've seen the situation, Charlie, about the Haitians, snatching up the family pets and eating them, apparently. Doesn't seem to be a ton of like hard evidence backing that up. I'll just say that there's some people with stories and they say that that's happening. Okay. I can't confirm or deny. I can't really tell you whether or not this is happening
But this could have been another opportunity where he could have highlighted, government misinformation.
Well, later he says that who's the city manager, they're like, oh, the city manager said this isn't happening. He's like, well, of course they said that because you know what the incentives are in government. They never want to tell you that they're doing a bad job. That's how the government operates.
Right.
That's what these people do once they get in power. They're not going to tell you that they're doing a good job. And it's like, he's just not there, not really there. So let's hear that in exchange.
Springfield. They're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating
ducks.
the pets of the people that live
What are you
there.
eating?
And this is what's happening
What
in
are you
our
eating?
country.
I was
and
eating
it's
pork
a shame.
rinds.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He
Another
told
fact
us
check.
there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken
TV
and
says it.
used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President.
In Springfield,
neither one of those things are.
in
Why does it do that? Neither one of those things are credible to say, like him saying the city manager says that that's not the case, or Trump saying I saw it on the TV. Neither one of those are real good. You can see anything on TV, and he does kind of come off as a boomer who sees something on TV, and they're like, "Oh, they said on TV that that's what's going on." Like that old school "I trust what the news says" all the time kind of mentality. Yeah, he missed a little bit of an opportunity there, and I kind of don't think it had to be brought up until it's completely confirmed. But whatever, Kamala lied a bunch too. This is a good point, I think, for Trump. Kamala brings up the prosecution. She's kind of smirking and smiling while she's talking about him getting prosecuted for all this stuff, and I think there's actually a good exchange that takes place here.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents get this,
That's a good thing.
on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts.
Vice President Harris, thank
She calling the former vice president?
Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
So that was a good response overall. He kind of hit some of the important points. You know, there's a good point in there that he's making, like, oh, they're calling me a criminal. They're the ones who went after me to make me a quote unquote criminal. Like he didn't make the point that great, but that was kind of the point he's making there.
Could have brought in the assassination again there.
Oh, he did. He did bring it. I think I just cut it off.
Okay.
Let's hear.
I was going to say,
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again.
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
we do have a lot
that went nowhere.
We have a lot.
Okay.
Decent, but I think the way he could have said it better was that they're trying to take him out by any means, they're trying to take me out by any means necessary through these fake criminal investigations, assassination attempts, and rather than go the Russia route, I think he should have gone a different route instead of saying, Russia hoax. He should have hammered home the point of the assassination.
And the point that she got 0 votes in the primary.
And bringing in the coup. Mm-hmm. I thought he did a good job of saying, they say I'm a threat to democracy. They're the ones who are a threat to democracy. And here's how. They're weaponizing the DOJ and bringing false cases against me. They tried to assassinate me. They are the last point we just made, which is the coup. Yeah. They're the ones who are cooing when Kamala Harris got 0 votes. Look at all these ways they're trying to steal an election. He could have, not bad, it could have been better.
Could have been a lot better.
If he would have been prepared, it would have been a lot better.
That's the thing. I think he just should have prepared. I'm not saying that he's so old he's incapable of doing any of this stuff. I just think he needs to take it more seriously. This isn't Joe Biden, okay? Kamala Harris might be an idiot, but you can oh man, I was going to say 2 different things and I decided they were both not good to go with. Dang it. I keep thinking of things that I can't say out loud. You can train almost anyone.
Why can't you say them out loud? Isn't this a free country?
Train almost anyone or anything.
Isn't this a free country with free speech?
It is. Yeah, it definitely is.
But you can't say things out loud?
I can. Oh. I'm just choosing not to.
Why?
Because I'm choosing my words
out
carefully.
Of fear for what?
No fear.
Okay.
No fear.
Right.
The stolen election thing. They asked him about that.
So you're racist.
This is another time. It's true. I'm racist regardless. It doesn't matter.
Well, this just proves you can't help your unconscious bias.
The stolen election thing is another problem. Like they asked him about it in the last few weeks. They're right. In the last few weeks, he has said we lost by a whisker, or we just whatever. He said that a couple times, and he needs to stick with that. But if he's not going to stick with that, here's the way that you deflect and turn this into a different point. 2020 was a very different year from any year that we've ever had in American elections. We had the most amount of mail-in votes, early voting, drop boxes, all these things that we've never had before, at least not on this scale in American history. And I heard plenty that there was a lot of fraud that went on. You say there wasn't. I heard from a lot of credible people that I find credible, and they're great, okay? They're great people, you know, fine people even. I heard from them that there was a lot of fraud. But even if there wasn't, here's what's important. What's important is that the American people have a system where they can trust their elections. And as long as we have all of these mail-in ballots and we have electronic voting and we have random drop boxes around the place, the American people are always going to be questioning these elections, and that is dangerous for democracy, whether there is fraud or there isn't any fraud. And that is what needs to get fixed. That's why we need to have voter ID. That's why we need to have paper ballots. That's why we need to have making sure that illegal immigrants can't vote, stuff like that. That way we can actually secure the elections, and we can have people have more confidence in the elections, and we don't have to worry about this happening again.
And he can say that's not a racist policy because Kamala requires ID to get into her rallies.
Yeah. So that's what I think we should have heard.
Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
I said that?
It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look
Just
at
say
it.
you
And they
lost.
should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls. And we have to have it. We have to have borders. And we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No judge
Republican,
looked at it.
And said
They said
no
we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election...
So there's a point in this. The standing thing is that's a good rebuttal to that whole you had 60 cases. Like we didn't actually go through the cases. They looked at them, said we didn't have standing. That doesn't mean that we were wrong about everything. They just said that we couldn't bring it.
The other thing he could have done is, if I'm elected president, I'll be able to release all the evidence that I have, and I'll prove to the American people that it was fraudulent.
The annoying part here, once again, with the moderator, he came in like, dude, I don't care whether or not you detected sarcasm in what Trump was saying. You know, if Trump says that was sarcasm, which I don't believe him either.
I don't.
Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
I think he slipped up and said that they lost by a whisker. He admitted that they lost. Hey, he's not the president right now. I think Joe Biden is the president. That means Trump lost the election.
It doesn't matter what he says. He left the White House.
Yeah, he's not there right now. And so you lost the election by a whisker. Okay, that's fine. He says it's sarcastic. It's not the moderator's job to say, oh, well, I didn't detect any sarcasm in your voice when you said that. That's not a fact check. You can't fact check whether or not someone was being sarcastic when they were talking.
Right.
Good Lord, do you imagine if someone tried to do that on this show? My God. Good Lord, it'd be impossible. You can't fact check whether or not someone's sarcastic. That's ridiculous. So that's another thing with the moderators. We'll, let's see. Man, it keeps, I don't know how to stop it. I'll tell you what. Now we got the bloodbath and the fine people.
I'm so tired of this. I'm tired of talking about it on the show.
Another instance.
In fact, I'm not going to say anything.
Another instance where they could have came in with a fact check. Like they just tried to fact check Donald Trump's mood and tone of voice when he was speaking on someone's podcast. But they can't come in and fact check an actual thing. So we got the bloodbath comment and then the fine people comment. Here's the bloodbath part, and I think I've coupled this with Trump's actual bloodbath comment at the end of it.
Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election
You'll
there
hear a
will
lot
be
of comments
bloodbath.
from me in this, by the way. You can see me down in the corner of the screen. Especially in the fine people when I definitely start losing my mind.
if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this.
It was a different.
And the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars. They're building massive factories.
He's talking about economics in this. Okay, so that seems to be what he meant by bloodbath. Okay, I don't think he meant that they're going to go around chopping up people with a machete if he doesn't win the election. Okay?
Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
Oh my God, she's doing it.
Let's remember.
Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people.
I love how he gives the most credible sources to
debunk
debunk
an extra
this.
sentence, they will see it was perfect.
All right. Yeah, that's a terrible way to explain that something has been debunked, by the way, and being like, oh, Sean Hannity debunked this. That's it's not going to work. Okay.
Yeah.
Just not. For all we know, Sean Hannity's on his knees behind the podium right now in front of Trump. So, I mean, that's not a good fact check for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Just say Snopes fact check this. And by the way, you can look at the transcript. I didn't bring it in because, good Lord, how many times are we going to talk about this?
I said I'm not going to say anything about it.
Yeah. Here's fracking.
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
Oh,
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking.
Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move on
to
to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her plan is until just recently.
Will you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking your first day in office, adding the United States to the list of countries who have banned this devastating practice?
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yes, and starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities. Yeah, so thank you.
So would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes, and I've, again, worked on that.
It's very fun. I've worked on that. What do you know? I've worked on that too. All right. The next thing that we have here is
See, and Trump could have also talked more about how she's flip-flop positions and taking on his positions because his positions are winning positions.
mm-hmm.
You know, he could have been like, oh, the reason why she's trying to copy me is because my positions are winning.
Yeah, they're what the American people want.
They're what the American. So she's trying to flip-flop. Don't believe her. This is what she supported all this stuff for years, and now all of a sudden she's trying to implement some of my plans into her campaign because they're winning plans.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think she got the idea of no tax on tips? You know, he could have brought so many of these things that they have now jumped on and put it forward as I've had the winning position. I've had the winning plans. Not only are they trying to take me out, they're trying to copy me at the same time. He just missed so many opportunities.
I think, yeah.
And of course, hindsight is always 20/20. But also, I was having these thoughts during the debate.
Yeah.
Like when Kamala would say something, in my head, I had my own response, and Trump went nowhere close to it. And I was like, what? This is so easy. She tossed a softball up to you in this debate.
She says her values haven't changed. Okay, well, what does that mean? Your values haven't changed. In 2019, your values led you to say that you wanted to do a mandatory gun buyback. Your values led you to say that you wanted to ban fracking. Your values led you to say that you wanted to decriminalize illegal border crossings, or that you wanted taxpayers to fund sex change surgeries for illegal immigrants that are in prison, or whatever the crazy thing is that you wanted to do. So if your values haven't changed, then what did change? Are you lying right now so you can win an election? Do you really not believe those things? How do you have the same values if you don't believe the same things anymore to couple with those values? And that's because, Kamala, Madam Vice President, your highest value is getting more power. That's what your actual highest value is. And you've decided that the way for you to win this election is to get closer to what my plans are, because that's what's most popular with the American people. There you go.
Boom.
No, I'm not going to run for president. I'm sick of people saying I should. And Charlie will. And I will be his chief of staff. I will.
She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. She has a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she has
we do
a
have to
plan
move on
to
to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her plan is until just recently.
This business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
I support buybacks, and I think that, look, we have 5 million assault weapons on the streets of America, and we have 5 million assault weapons on the streets of America. And assault weapons have been designed to kill a lot of human beings quickly. They are weapons of war, and there is no place for them on a civil society, on the streets of a civil society. And it's something I'm so passionate about and so looking forward to being president to address. We've got to deal with this.
How mandatory is your gun buyback program?
It's mandatory.
Second Amendment?
The Second Amendment, listen, we're going to have to do it the right way. There's no question about that. But we don't have any, we have to get these guns off the street. But I also, I have faith in the American people to know that, that we want to comply with our laws, and that I know that to be true.
Millions of specifically assault weapons.
God, she cannot talk if it's not scripted.
She wants to confiscate your guns, and she...
Basically another clip of her saying the same thing. I think the last one that I have here is the abortion thing. This is I think the one time during the debate that I actually said out loud that I thought he gave a good answer on the thing. And now he uses a lot of exaggeration or hyperbole or absolutes or whatever. He says every legal scholar, everyone wanted us to repeal Roe versus Wade and send it back to the states. I mean, come on, not everyone.
Yeah,
like we know that. So stop saying everyone. That part just drives me nuts, because it kind of sounds like you're lying when you're saying it, because everyone knows every is not the proper word.
What drives me more nuts, though, is the way the media has portrayed the fact that women can't access healthcare now, which is absolutely false. I literally was in a conversation with someone this morning that sent like 3 articles, and I'm like, did you even read the articles? Because what they're saying is the woman said she felt like she wasn't seen. She didn't die. She was able to have a D&C in the state of Texas, and she didn't die. She had the procedure and didn't get arrested, and neither did the medical professionals. She just felt like they weren't, doing their job as adequately as they were when Roe v. Wade was there. It's so ridiculous. I'm like, the whole media spin on this entire thing is insane. There is not a single law out there in even a Republican state that does not have exceptions built into the law for rape, incest, and the health and safety of the mother. It's all built in there. It's all built. Now, have there been some confusions about laws? Yes, but that happens with every single law. That's what we have courts for.
Mm-hmm.
So did IVF become a problem in Alabama for like a week and a half?
2 days.
2 days. Sorry, a week and a half. That was way too for 2 days.
It might have been a week. I don't know.
Yes. Were there some people that were hesitant on certain things in certain states? Yes. But as soon as those things were clarified, it's back to business as usual.
Yeah. And there's
So-
actually been more abortions after Roe
exactly.
than there were beforehand.
Now there's more. It just infuriates me because no one even actually reads these headlines. They're just sharing them around and be like, look.
Oh, they
Yeah.
read the headlines.
A woman's right to choose has been taken away.
Uh-huh.
No, it hasn't actually.
Well, there's a headline that says it.
Yeah.
You know, that has to be the content of the article.
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President.
That is actually not a reverse court. This is a whole either just total media contrived narrative that's happened, or it results from a complete and total misunderstanding of like how laws work or whatever. But currently they have this 6-week ban in Florida. Trump said that he would be voting for it to be longer than 6 weeks. He thinks 6 weeks is too short. All right. He's a resident of Florida. So that can easily mean if he has the opportunity, he's going to vote for something to be longer than that. That doesn't mean that he supports the amendment that's on the ballot in Florida that gives protections for abortion all the way up until the day before birth or whatever it is. That's not what that means. Okay. And so when he came out and said, no, I'm not going to vote for this amendment, that's not him reversing course on saying that he wanted there to be longer than 6 weeks. Longer than 6 weeks doesn't mean 40 weeks. That's not what it means. Could mean that he wants it to be 15 or something like that. But then going and voting for an amendment that like codifies 40 weeks in the law, that's not what he said he was going to do. So that whole thing's super annoying to me. And I don't know, they should have done a better job clarifying this. The Trump campaign should have.
President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before. He said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. And now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, want to get
A little quick fact check there for him, and which that is the case. But there is a video that everyone is seeing going around of the governor, former governor of Virginia, where he is talking about that exact situation. Now, I believe that was about a proposed law. I'm not exactly sure whether or not that went into effect. And then, like this, so she's shaking her head and everything when they're talking about abortion in the 9th month and all that. I mean, they're about to ask her if she would support any restrictions on abortion. And she says she supports the codifying Roe, which did allow for people to set restrictions, Roe specifically, in the 3rd trimester and some restrictions in the 2nd, which I don't even think she's really in favor of. We'd have to go back and see what she said about it. There are a lot of people out there on the left that want absolutely no restrictions whatsoever. And libertarians are divided on this issue. And so we always, sort of like to talk about both sides of this equation, but absolutely, when you're at viability, in no way, shape, or form should there be any abortion that takes place after that. If the baby can survive outside the womb, going inside and killing it is murder. And I think that everyone should be able to agree on that fact. And then they'll bring up, well, who's going to pay for it? And who's, what happens if the baby grows up in poverty? Okay, stop making arguments about killing poor people. I know that you like your eugenics thing, okay, but no, that's not the argument we're going to have. And so the fact that they just deny that this is the case really infuriates me, that people actually do support this and that they do happen. Now, a lot of the times this happens because of the health of the mother. And I don't know exactly what the number is where it's an elective, someone coming in and having an elective, 38th week abortion. I'm sure that's very rare, but an elective 38th week abortion is absolutely disgusting. And if it happens 50 times, well, I don't know, someone went out there and killed 50 kids, I think someone would get upset about it. So saying that it hardly ever happens is not a great argument either. All right. In 2016, there were a little over 4,000 abortions that occurred after viability. I believe it was the 24th week in the study I was looking at earlier. But like I said, a lot of those are because of health of the mother, and you'd have to break it down to how many of these are just elective, where someone decided they want to have the baby. That's the number people want to look at.
your response to President Trump?
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here.
I think you did good on that
Donald
answer.
Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And I pledge to you, when Congress...
Now, another thing that's ridiculous here is he's said he's in favor of exceptions. He said that he doesn't want a national abortion ban. All right, he said all of those things, that he wants it to be longer than 6 weeks. She still comes out and says these Trump abortion bans, you know, if he comes in, he'll sign a national abortion ban, all that. But then she gets mad when he talks about her grabbing your guns, when she literally said that that's what she wanted to do the last time she ran for president, or that she's going to ban fracking, which she literally said she wanted to do last time she was running for president, you know? But these are things that he said, yeah, I'm not in favor of that. I doubt you ever have him ever being in favor of those things, because he's been a Democrat almost his entire life. So I doubt you ever have him being in favor of those things. But she can come out and just say, well, this is what he's going to do, even though there's no proof that he's going to do it. We don't have him saying he's going to do it, but this is what he's going to do. I'm just going to say that. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade. As President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to.
And they could come in, if they were interested in fact-checking Kamala with any random things, and say, Trump's not one of the authors of Project 2025. The Heritage Foundation puts out one of these big policy white papers, like every year or every 4 years. Sure, a lot of people that Trump knows were authors on it, but hey, Washington's a giant cesspool. And so it's pretty difficult to not have any people writing on this thing that didn't have anything to do with his previous administration. He's said several times that he doesn't like it. He hasn't read it. All these things. He has nothing to do with it. And it's not going to be his major policy plan. So but then I think Trump really messes up here because they ask him to say that he won't sign a national abortion ban. And now if he won't sign it, then just say that you won't sign it. But he's afraid of making some people mad. Then they even bring up that J.D. Vance said that he wouldn't sign a national abortion ban. And he throws J.D. Vance under the bus and said, yeah, I didn't talk to J.D. Vance about that. I don't know where he's getting that from.
To sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Okay, so, I don't need Charlie's camera because he had to leave. Charlie's gone. It's just me now. I think he did overall pretty well on that, talking about it going back to the states. We can talk about disagreements on whether or not it even should be in the states, if you consider it to be murder. I don't really know if that's a states' rights issue or anything, but hey, we're not going to get into that today. Yeah, I think Kamala won this debate, and I'm not happy about that. I'm overall really just upset about the fact that Trump had so many opportunities. She presented him with an opportunity economy last night of a way to completely destroy her campaign. And maybe because he's so full of himself or because he's done really great in some of the past debates, he's like, I don't need to worry about this. We don't need to do any mock questions. I don't really need to have any canned answers. I'm just going to let it free flow, And I think it showed last night. There were a lot of better ways he could have discussed these things. And I think he could have. The other problem is with Trump himself. He's not a principled person. Like he's now a politician. He likes to be popular. He's a populist. Okay. And so when you don't have these specific principles, well, you don't have that to fall back on. Like I don't have to tell you my healthcare plan. The government shouldn't have anything to do with healthcare. I'm not going to present you with a plan. My plan is that the government has been ruining healthcare for my entire life and yours too. And so my plan is to get out of it, but he didn't have those kind of principles to be able to fall back on answers like that. You don't hear that kind of ideological thing. It's always just jab, jab, jab at the other person. And it just sort of didn't work last night because Kamala did a fairly decent job memorizing her answers. We'll see if this has any bearing on the election whatsoever. It's neck and neck. It's the closest election that we've probably ever seen. Personally, I don't care who wins this election, honestly. I kind of really don't. There's a lot of things weighing on that. I think things are going to get bad regardless in this country, worse than they have been. And so sometimes with that mentality, I'm like, well, it'd be better for a Democrat to be in office when those things happen, because then maybe you can blame it on them. Because I think things are going to get bad anyway. You can't shut down the economy and spend all these trillions of dollars without going through a major crash at some point in time. And so I think that's probably going to happen. There's probably going to be some wars and all that kind of stuff. I kind of don't really care who wins. When I think about Kamala winning, I get disgusted. And when I think about Trump winning, I'm not happy about that really either, because I worry that he I worry that he'll be the last Republican president or semi-free market president, which is not entirely free market, the last tax-cutting president that we have for a long time if he gets in there again. Those are my worries on that. And I know that this show will do better in ratings if Kamala wins. So if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you follow, hit subscribe, do all of those things. And if you do every single one of those, and tell us what we missed. Tell us what you thought. Comment on X, Good AM Liberty. Comment on YouTube, on the Good Morning Liberty channel, on TikTok, on Facebook. If you use Facebook, I don't know. Instagram, I haven't looked at that in a while, but do all those things and go to joingml.com so you can join the Fed Haters Club and hang out with these fine people on both sides that are hanging out with us right now in the live group. Joingml.com. If you do every single one of those things, and I mean every single one of them, then we'll be right back here again tomorrow. Until then, have a good day and a good morning. Liberty. All right.